There's a way you take me up from down and place my feet on solid ground.
Hey girl, good morning. Welcome back to my channel. So I've been asked to do a video on my journey to becoming a social worker, and I just thought that I would film it here at work. So to start off, I did not always want to be a social worker. I actually was wanting to do law. So I took the LSAT and I was so convinced that I was going, or not convinced, but I was more so determined that law was what I wanted to do. And so I've worked at law firms before, and I've interned at a law firm as well. And I just thought that, you know what, this is what I've always said since I, was young, that I wanted to be. And so this is what I'm going to be. And so fast forward to 2018. At this point, I had graduated undergrad a year prior, and so I was more so in a place where I was just like, Lord, like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm not convinced about law anymore. For whatever reason, I would always say I wanted to be a lawyer, but I just, for whatever, it just didn't spark my interest. I just didn't feel any motivation. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to do this thing. Went into a time of fasting and prayer and seeking the face of the Lord about my career. And then I went to a conference, and the Lord revealed to me that what I was doing, or the field that I was pursuing, was not what he wanted me to do. He had this place for me to occupy, and I was not occupying that place. And so I was just like, okay, Lord, so thank you for letting me know I'm not doing law, but what is it that you want me to do? And so in conversation with my dad, he starts listing out different careers. And then the moment, he asked me, what is it that you like to do? And I was like, I like to help people, vulnerable people. I just like to serve. And so he starts listing out all these different careers. And then the moment he says social work, it was almost like a light bulb turned on in my head. And I remember telling the Lord, I said, God, if social work is what you want me to do, please make the path easy for me. Because what I didn't mention was that with law, girl, I struggled. Like, I didn't score too well on the LSAT. I was not motivated to go. I was taking a LSAT prep course in DC. I just wasn't motivated. I wasn't interested. I worked at law firms before, as I mentioned, and it was okay. I feel like anything I put my mind to do, I can do, but I wasn't being fulfilled. And it was just very difficult. Like, I would apply for certain paralegal jobs and just entry-level things, and I just wasn't getting a lot of traction. And so I said, look, God, if you're calling me into social work, I don't want it to be that way. Make the path easy for me. And so that's how it was. I talked to a mentor at the time, and they told me a school that I could consider for social work. And so they're like, yeah, they can give you a scholarship and everything. So I applied to the school, and by the grace of God, I got in, and I even got a scholarship as well to cover a good portion of my grad school career. And so that's how it was. That was my journey to becoming a social worker. You may be wondering how you can get into the field of social work as well. So if you are someone who is an undergrad, meaning you are a freshman in college, sophomore, junior, senior, not grad school, and you're wondering what should you study to get into the field of social work, I'm not going to say you have to study psychology or you have to study sociology or any of those social sciences to get into the field. It will help, but it's not mandatory. So for me, as I mentioned to you all, I did not always want to be a social worker. I didn't even know what a social worker was for most of my life. And so when I was an undergrad, I was not an undergrad with that mindset of going into social work. I was considering law. So I studied psychology, that was my major, and my minor was political science. So when I applied to grad school, I came in with that, and it was perfectly okay, right? But in grad school, my focus was clinical behavioral health track for my area of concentration. And so I would say it helps to study psychology. You're still going to be taught a lot in school, but if you want to get the ball rolling when it comes to human behavior and things like that, go for it. You can actually just get a BSW, which is a bachelor's of social work, but there are not a lot of opportunities out there when it comes to a bachelor's of social work compared to a master's of social work. Now, I went and got a master's of social work because by the time I graduated from undergrad with my bachelor's, I did not know about social work. I was not interested in it. And so at that point, I wasn't going to go back and do another bachelor's just to study social work. So I went ahead and got a master's, and it was just good for me because at the end of the day, more jobs will seek you out if you have a master's. There are more opportunities, higher pay. And I just want to say this for the record. Don't listen to people when they say that social work is poorly paid. It really all depends on where you work, the type of job that you work as well. So there are people that are in the field that are making good money. All right, so don't let that be your deciding factor as to whether you're going to pursue this field. All right, my program, my master's was 2 years. I didn't have to take a what is that test you have to take before you get into grad school? I didn't have to take that because my program just didn't require that. So yeah, you apply to a school, you study social work, and then what happens after that is that you get an internship. And your school will coordinate that for you. So you get an internship so that you can get hands-on learning, and then you apply that and you finish school and you graduate, right? So after you graduate, then you have to study for your license. You have to do research on your state to see what the rules are, but I know that for my state, the state of Maryland, I have to be licensed to do what I'm doing, right? And so you have to go through a time where you're studying for your exam, and there's a lot of resources out there. I can link some down below that I used. I know the ASWB has resources as well where you can use to study, and you can even take practice tests. A lot of them are free. You can find a lot of things on YouTube as well to study. And then when you study, you get your license, you pass, then you are a licensed social worker. Okay, now that is the first level of licensure. To be fully licensed in social work is the clinical license. This is a step up, and this is a license that you obtain after you've had your master's level of social work for 2 years and you've had experience for 2 years. Then you can now apply to take the clinical license. And when you get this clinical license, of course, you get higher pay, and then you can also open up your own practice. So you see where some social workers have their own clinics where they're offering therapy, they're collaborating with nurse practitioners and just other people in the field of health, and they come together and they provide care for clients. Okay, so this is just a breakdown of what it looks like to get into the field of social work, my journey as a social worker. And I hope that this helped you. If you have any additional questions or anything I didn't cover, please let me know down below, and I would be more than happy to help you out.